Hey everyone, welcome to Mr. Geopolitics. So, today is September the 8th, and we're going to be talking about the latest developments in Ukraine. So, let's get right into it. More or less everywhere in Ukraine, the lines are more or less stable. What everyone is talking about right now is that the Ukrainians near the Izium Kharkiv front. Here's Kharkiv, here's Izium, and in between we have a lot of activity. Here, Balakleya has fallen, and the Ukrainians have done the impossible, or what might have seemed impossible just a few weeks or even a few days ago. So, the Ukrainians initially sent forces towards Balakleya from Andriivka, and they didn't take the main route, the P78. They took, they didn't take the P78. They took another route which leads to the city from Verbivka. So they went to Verbivka, and they took this route right here, and they just went to the east, and then the Russians began reinforcing their positions at Balakleya, and then the Ukrainians did something unexpected. Now, before this offensive, there were rumors and there were some intelligence that the Ukrainians were they're basically building up their forces at Kharkiv and just in the area of Izium. But no one was certain exactly where they would attack. But anyways, they went towards Balakleya, and then they all of a sudden thrust north unexpectedly, catching the Russians, it seems, off guard. They went north, and then they quickly captured Volokhiv Yar. And after capturing Volokhiv Yar, they didn't stop there. They went towards Shevchenkov. And on this map, it shows that Shevchenkov has been taken. But according to some sources, basically they blocked off Shevchenkov. So the same thing they did at Balakleya. They went towards the city. Reinforcements came. And then they just continued on their way. And most of the forces, they went east. And it doesn't seem like throughout all of this, it doesn't seem like the Ukrainians have met much resistance. So either this is a lack of manpower, or just a failure on the part of the Russian military leadership to properly reinforce this position, and a failure on their part to take the intelligence seriously. It seems like they didn't take it all that seriously, and on the in the west of the country. Of course, we know that the Ukrainian offensive on the Kherson front has basically stalled. They took one village, and then they haven't been able to do much since then. Just to show you quickly for those who don't know. So they took the village of, if this ever loads, they took the village of Vysokopilia, and fighting is ongoing to the south of Vysokopilia, but that's been going on for more than a week. And this little bulge here is called the David Breed sector. And everything here basically revolves around the Ukrainians crossing the river, and they controlled Suky Stavok. The Russians took Suky Stavok for a while. The forces to the south were looked like they might get encircled. Then reinforcements came in, and basically they've They took back Suky Stavok, the Ukrainians, but they've been stuck here trying to push in any direction. They tried to go east, they were rebuffed, and now it doesn't seem like this little mini offensive is going anywhere. It seems to have stalled, and from what we know, the Ukrainian forces here, the Russians have blown the pontoon bridges, destroyed the pontoon bridges on several occasions, and the Ukrainian forces here keep getting bombarded. And the Ukrainians might be even thinking about putting this mini offensive to an end. So that's stalled. Kherson is stalled. But anyways, back to the area that everyone is paying attention to right now. So the Ukrainians, the way I would describe this is that it's pretty much an armored thrust, and they're just moving ahead as fast as possible. They're not trying to even take every single settlement on their way, because that would slow them down. They're just basically trying to do what the Germans did in World War II and cut off the enemy by cutting off vital supply routes and just by just cutting them off, surrounding them. So on this map, it shows the Russians did go towards, the Ukrainians did go towards Kupiansk, because as you can see, there's a big river here. And basically, if the Ukrainians could get to this river, the forces in Izium, like if this bulge if they could take all this area here, get to the river and take all this area right here, basically the forces at Izium would be in a way encircled by the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians could attack them from the north, from the west, and from the south. There's some word that the Ukrainians are planning to launch a counteroffensive also from the south to basically try to pin down the Russian troops at Izium, because the Russians have a decent sized contingent at Izium, and the Ukrainians would want to pin them down before they can do anything and get involved in this counteroffensive. But anyways, this map is showing Shevchenkov has fallen to the Ukrainians. But let's look at a few more maps, because there isn't a lot of videos or pictures or anything coming out of here, this area, and all we can do is go by the words of different people who maybe know someone on the field, or maybe know someone who knows what's going on, but we don't have a really clear picture of what's happening. And the Ukrainians, it's because they're one of the reasons is because they've moved really quickly, and I have a lot of questions about this myself, but basically let's look at a few more maps first. So here's Balakleya. At Balakleya, after a few days of fighting, the Russian forces decided to withdraw. They thought their situation was untenable and they withdrew. They're now at Savinsk, and allegedly the latest attempt of the Ukrainians, they recently attempted to come from Zaliman and attack the Russian contingent here, but so far they've been able to hold the position. Anyways, let's look at a few maps first before we get into it more. This map is the ISW map, and it shows that the Ukrainians have not even gotten to Shevchenkov, and that they're just thrusting towards Shevchenkov. But this map is wrong, because we know that they've already gone past Shevchenkov towards Kupiansk. So this map is wrong. This map would probably be more accurate. But even in this map, it's showing in blue the areas they believe the Ukrainians control, and the areas in between haven't been colored yet, because there's just the fog of war here is really prevalent. We don't know exactly what's going on, but on this map it shows Shevchenkov has been taken by the Ukrainians. Right, so this map shows Shevchenkov has been taken. This map, ISW, shows it hasn't. Some sources are saying the Russians were that Shevchenkov hasn't fallen yet. That Ukrainian forces basically went towards Shevchenkov and then made a hard right, and then went east. So they basically stiffened the line, you could say. They did the same thing at Balakleya. They went towards Balakleya, and that made the Ukrainians reinforce the position, and that stiffened the line, and then they just went another direction. They seem to have done the same thing here. They went towards Shevchenkov, reinforcements came, they're ready, and then they just go another direction. So that's really smart on the part of the Ukrainians. But we look on this map, which is the militaryland.net map. It shows Shevchenkov has been taken, but Kupiansk, they haven't been able to take it, the Ukrainians. But it also shows some enclaves of Russians that are still in these areas, which kind of makes sense because the Ukrainians moved so quickly. I mean, and the Russians, they seem to have done a good job of avoiding getting encircled. Like at Balakleya, they didn't allow themselves to get encircled. They just, went east. But the thing is, the Russians also controlled Bulge here. Even yesterday, I believe they controlled a bulge that extended, because there was a part of the M103 they didn't control. There was like a bulge sticking east, and then the Russians had a bulge kind of sticking west, and this kind of shows that bulge still there. So it shows that the Russians are still in some of their in some of these settlements. The Russians are still there. Now, mind you, these settlements are not, in this region, most of these settlements are not huge. I mean, you have some towns like Balakleya, if this ever loads, yeah, you have Shevchenkov, which is, I mean, you could refer to it as a large village or town, I guess. I don't know. Kind of looks like a village to me, but doesn't look as big as Balakleya, which is a town for sure. But anyways, most of these settlements are really tiny. So the Ukrainians have taken a decent amount of territory. But to me, it just seems like the Ukrainians moved really quickly. And one question I had is, how did the Russians move to friendly territory so quickly? Did none of their forces get left behind? But we're not getting any footage out of there. We're not getting any information that Russians have been captured. So I don't know. It seems the Russians can move quickly as well, I guess. But here you can see on this map, which is from Rybar, you can see the bulge here, which is similar to what you see here on this map, the UA live map. But yeah, Kupiansk, definitely the Russians control. Shevchenkov, it's being contested, and the Ukrainians might control it by now. Actually, they might. But on this map, when it was released not that long ago, it shows that it was being contested. But you can see what what the Ukrainians did, right? They took Balakleya, and now they're headed east, right? And Savinci is where the Russians are stationed right now. The ones that fled encirclement in Balakleya. That group of Russian troops are in Savinci right now, and they seem to be holding firm so far. Although I don't know if they will be able to, because this is a salient that's sticking out, right? On the other hand, this whole counteroffensive has turned into somewhat of a salient for the Ukrainians. If you look at it that way, this is a salient for the Ukrainians, and the Russians might be able to take advantage of that. But yeah, I mean, this map shows that a lot of the territory is being contested. So the Ukrainians are trying their best to get to the river that runs here from north to south. That's their main goal. Whether they get to Kupiansk or Senkov, or whichever settlement they get to, they just want to get to the river and cut off the Russians. Now, here's where it could be dangerous for the Ukrainians, because we know, and here's another question I'm wondering, where is the Russian Air Force? I mean, if the Ukrainians are sending armored columns, armored spearheads, they're thrusting spearheads into Russian territory, armored columns, where's the Russian Air Force? I mean, this is really close to Russia itself, and this is close to Russian, controlled territory. So I mean, even if the Ukrainians have activated air defenses, if they have air defenses active, that would mean that, the Russians could just even fly low in their own territory, not having to worry about manpads. And then they could just, when they get into the enemy territory, they could go up higher, to a higher altitude, right before they get to the target, hit the target, use your flares, get out. So, but it doesn't seem like the Russians have, put up much of a fight, and it doesn't seem like there has been many clashes that we've heard of, and it doesn't seem like the Russians, where's the Russian Air Force? Where are the Iranian drones? Those Iranian drones that the U.S. has quadrupled down on, that they're saying, the Iranians have 110% sold hundreds of drones with precision strike capabilities to Russia. So where are those drones? Those drones would be really useful by now, but where's the Russian Air Force? Where's the Russian artillery? Here's the thing about this situation. Russia's close by, and this area right here, where you see Veliki Burluk, this entire bulge right here, essentially, it's right by the Russian border. What we're hearing is that the Russians are sending reinforcements. There was one video showing Russian armor headed towards Kupiansk. So the Ukrainians have launched what they call a counteroffensive, but the Russians might launch their own counteroffensive. And here's where it gets dangerous for the Ukrainians. There are a lot of rivers that connect to this region. This entire region is filled with rivers, and where there's rivers, there's bridges. If we look at Balakleya itself, just to get to the city from this road, there's a bridge here, right? These are not massive bridges. These are just little town type of bridges. These are not bridges like the Antonivka Bridge. Nothing even close. where is it? Yeah. So it's not even close to anything like this, right? This is a much larger scale of bridge. Those are the bridges we're talking about here. They're small, but they're still vital, right? I mean, you have to cross the bridge to get over these rivers, right? So, I mean, yeah, even from Verbivka, you can see from when the Ukrainians were west of Balakleya, of Verbivka, if this ever loads. Oh man, I pay so much for my internet. I gotta find another provider probably. Anyways, yeah, so there's a river right here. Can you load, please? I'm sorry, guys. This internet's really acting up tonight. I stay up late and I don't know what it is. If they do their maintenance work at nighttime, because not many people are on, but it just seems like. Anyways, you see this road runs through this river, so that's another road, and then the main road that goes where the Ukrainians went north from Balakleya before they even took Balakleya. There's a river running along that road, right? And Volokhiv Yar the Ukrainians took, but right after Volokhiv Yar, to keep going north and then east, I mean, there's a river right here, right? The T2110. You can see. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. You just gotta be patient, I guess. But yeah, there's a river crossing right here, right? There's a river crossing right there. And then furthermore, there's another river crossing right there. My point is, this entire area is connected by bridges, right? So, I mean, the Russians could just blow up those bridges. They have the capability. I mean, the Russians, they can hit any part of Ukraine with their missiles, right? And they have recently, in recent days. So, I mean, I'm sure they could destroy those bridges if they wanted to, with artillery, with missiles, airstrikes, you name it. I mean, it's not like those bridges are moving anywhere or jumping around. They're static. They're there. The Russians could destroy those bridges, and at that point, I mean, they could. If assuming the Russians send in enough reinforcements, they could destroy those bridges and then start launching artillery strikes, airstrikes, and launch their own counteroffensive from every direction, right? But essentially, Volokhiv Yar, which is right here, right? If the Russians, who might still control Shevchenkov, or who are nearby anyways, if they were able to take Volokhiv Yar, right? If they're able to get to Volokhiv Yar from there, and then they have a decent contingent at Izium. They could leave a defensive. I mean, let's say they have like 20,000 here, or like 15,000. They could leave a defensive contingent here, and or they could leave even the majority of their troops here. Just send some reinforcements, and yeah, I mean, if they could get to Volokhiv Yar, then that would be big trouble for the Ukrainians, right? What I'm saying is they could potentially cut off the Ukrainians if they launch a successful counterattack, right? So, okay, let me just do one thing. So yeah, I mean, Volokhiv Yar, right? And there's a road right here from Shevchenkov that leads to it. The M103 leads to it. So I mean, you never know. Right now, it seems like fate is on the side of the Ukrainians, but you never know what might happen. And the Russians are sending reinforcements. The Ukrainians are also sending reinforcements. So we're just going to have to wait and see. But as of now, there are more questions than answers. And the fog of war is prevalent. But I'm going to keep watching and I'll keep you guys updated. So for now, that's about it. And yeah, please like, subscribe, comment, share, help me grow the channel. And I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you. Have a great day or night.